Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
A wife goes missing and doesn't show up at home. What's a husband to think? Today's story has a similar plot. Enjoy watching it. "Oh, what a cute pink envelope," Terry said, leaning over and squeezing Vernon's shoulders. "This must be a Valentine, right?" "Secret admirer, huh, Vern?" "I think it's possible," Vernon replied, stuttering as he turned the unopened object over in his hands as if it were a bomb. "I thought it was some kind of greeting card, but my birthday isn't soon. It clearly says to Vernon Harrison on the front, and it's underlined twice, so it's definitely for you, Vern." He had met Terry only a week ago, on Wednesday or Thursday. He couldn't remember exactly, so he barely knew her, although she acted very familiarly. "Nobody calls me Vern," he thought. I should be the boss, though even to him it sounded strange. He had been a regular member of this office for over 20 years and had been in charge for only 18 months since being promoted to chief planner. Terry was the most recent temporary employee to join Barton Valley Council's planning department. They were constantly short of qualified planners, so they usually had at least 3 part-time temporary staff handling much of the non-technical but still important work, such as sending standard letters to applicants and neighboring residents, as well as special consultants, which varied depending on each plan application. The Human Resources Department, under the leadership of the formidable and fearsome Mrs. Hilda Brankston, provided a constantly changing supply of temporary employees. Terry, he thought without remembering her last name, must have been a mother with a small child or children, since she only worked from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., Monday through Friday. He thought she was between 20 and 25 years old, which made her almost half his age. She was young enough to be his daughter, though his twin girls were at universities, one in Bristol, the other in Newcastle, which meant a lot of traveling to pick them up and drop them off at the beginning and end of their school terms. That responsibility began last October, and he knew it would largely fall on him for the next 3 years rather than on his busy wife, Denise, who was now the mayor of Barton Valley. Terry was very attractive, Vernon thought, of average height and wearing loose tops that couldn't hide her large breasts. But the tops hid her waist. However, she had a perfect 5th place in those loose sweatpants. He noticed it several times when she crouched down to replenish paper in the copier and again when she leaned over Julie's desk pretending to watch something. The office suddenly fell silent, both men and women. "It looks like it's handwritten," Vernon muttered, "but I don't recognize the handwriting." "This confused me at first, Terry," he said, "because I thought, who would send me a birthday card this time of year? My birthday is at the end of March, Easter is in 6 or 7 weeks, and our wedding anniversary is in June. I didn't even think it could be a Valentine." "I don't think it was written by hand," she said, leaning a little closer to get a better look, so that her breasts barely touched his back. He caught the scent of her light spring perfume. "No, it was clearly printed on a copy printer. It's the same font that Vicky uses to sign all her emails." "Is it?" Vernon asked, pulling the card closer and taking off his reading glasses. "I can't understand." "I mean, it's blue ink, not black." "Exactly, Vern. It was printed on our color printer," she said confidently. "The letter V is exactly the same as in Vicky's signature. I recognize her because Vicky is the only one who uses this font, and I really like the T from her last name. I think this font is called Shelley." Vernon seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. "Phew, the card might be from Denise, although I didn't expect it. I wouldn't want any more complications in my life right now. I should probably buy her a card." "Come on, open it," Terry said, shaking him by the shoulders, her thumbs massaging the back of his head. "I want to see what she wrote." She whispered softly in his ear, so close that he felt the warmth of her breath. "It would be such a disappointment for us girls if a handsome man like you only received Valentines from guys." "I'm a married man," he insisted, showing her his ring with his left hand. "Happily married," he added for emphasis. "Not even hidden." "No, I'm not a hidden person," he said. He looked at her. Her flawless young face was just a few centimeters from his nose, a small smile playing on her plump pink lips. "Fine, now open this card, mister, because I have to get back to work soon or my whip boss will punish me. We can't let that happen, can we?" Vernon chuckled. "Is it not?" she asked softly, her smile fading, her eyebrows raised. Then she smiled again, her eyes sparkling as they always did when she smiled. "No, now is not the time to play, is it, Vern?" Then she laughed, a deep, guttural laugh that made Vernon think her boyfriend or husband must be constantly happy. Vernon couldn't remember the last joyful moment he had at home. Oh yes, he remembered, it was the eve of Christmas. But both Vernon and Denise were stressed then, and ever since, the details of the local plan, the council's budget, and the setting of the annual property tax had been a busy time for Denise as mayor of the Barton Valley District. He flipped the envelope over and tore the sealed flap, running his index finger along the folded edge to reveal a card covered in red ink in the shape of a large heart surrounded by small roses strung on swirls of ribbon. He pulled it out of the envelope. "Happy Valentine's Day," it read. Terry leaned over his shoulder, her chin resting almost on his hand, her long, curly red hair tickling his right ear. "Oh, this big red heart takes up the whole card with these red ribbons and roses around it. What a beautiful card, isn't it, Vern?" "Yes," Vernon agreed. "A little girly nonsense." "You brave men are so insensitive to such things," Terry said with a smirk. "I think it looks hot and romantic. It's like it's acknowledging that you have a big heart and some greedy girl wants a big piece of it, or any piece she can get, I guess." Vernon looked at her. Her face was almost too close for the comfort of a married man. She was right in his personal space when she said the last sentence, sounding like how he imagined a vamp. But when he turned and looked at her, her face was open with an innocent, girlish smile and soft eyes. "I bet she can go from cute vamp to cute girl next door and back again in an instant," he thought as they exchanged glances. "Oh, Vern, did you get your haircut recently?" Yes, on Saturday." "That's what I thought. The hair on the back of my head has this irresistible short, bristly texture that just drives a girl crazy." She swallowed. He didn't notice that her thumbs, which had been stroking the back of his head through his shirt, had moved to the skin at the back of his head and then up to his hairline. Her face still looked sweet and innocent. "Open the card, Vern. I want to read what she wrote," she insisted. He returned his gaze to the card, opened it, and out fell a chain of 4 red hearts cut out and tied together, with an eye on the top of the card and a U below the hearts, with the letters LOV divided between the 4 hearts. "It's not signed," Terry noted. "But then you can't run a card with pop-outs cut out through the printer." "Check the back, Vern." Vernon turned the card over. On the back were 3 large X's clearly written in ballpoint pen, pressed into the thick card. When held at an angle to the light, there was no way to tell who sent it. "There's no way I can tell who sent it from those X's," Vernon said. "It's probably your wife," Terry suggested. "Almost certainly." "What did you give her for Valentine's Day?" I haven't bought her a card or a gift yet," he hesitated. "We haven't celebrated Valentine's Day for a long time." No, he thought, we haven't celebrated Valentine's Day for many years. "You better hurry up, Vern, if you don't want trouble at home. It's Monday, and Valentine's Day is Wednesday, you know." "Well, now I know. Anyway, go to work, slave, before I punish you." "Oh, sir," Terry laughed, letting go of his shoulders and jumping away. "When I showed up for the interview, HR didn't tell me anything about your employee benefits system," she said, sitting down at a table 2 rows away from Vernon, where they could both see each other, smiling. At the table opposite in the open-plan office, Mrs. Vicky Talbot and Miss Julie Kavanaugh watched the scene with interest. "Vernon and a new girl?" "This is unexpected," Julie commented. "She's a smart girl. Terry's only been working here 2 days, and she's already figured out that Vernon's wife is clearly having an affair with that sleazy, Harry Cox. I mean, Denise wants to keep her little affair under wraps while it lasts, but my Darren says Cox wags his tongue in the Carpenters about how the mayor is his every chance he gets. Terry seems to know what's going on and makes moves to pick him up. When he finally finds out, he's in good shape for an old man. He's a member of the rowing club and races on the Bar River on Sundays." "Is the new girl single, married, or divorced?" "I found out from her herself on Friday in the ladies' room. She's a single mother and dresses so modestly, wearing this fake wedding ring to ward off men at work. She has been working temporarily for many years and knows well how to avoid wolves. Vernon Harrison is not a wolf." "That's right." He's a nice guy and really needs to give his wife, the mayor, a kick in the 5th place. Terry is really nice once you get to know her, and she is so beautiful. I know she dresses modestly in those loose sweaters and pants, no makeup, neutral perfume, etc., but there's no hiding the fact that she has a toned 5th place that requires several days a week at the gym to maintain. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. She lives with her mom and has a gym at home, Vicky whispered, nodding. She has a baby at home, so she gets up a couple of hours earlier, exercises, and showers before getting the baby up, feeding him, and sending him to school. She's too young for Vern and Vicky. She's only about 22. She must be around 30 or a little younger. Her child is 9 years old, in the same class as my youngest. She's really beautiful, Julie sighed, as Terry stood behind Vernon and walked away. And even under that loose top, you can see she has breasts that would drive Vernon crazy if he knew she was throwing herself at him. Yes, poor sweet guy. He doesn't even realize he's being used by women on both sides, Vicky commented. Oh well, she's not my type, too old and too quiet. But he's a really nice guy, too nice for anyone to tell him that his, expletive, wife has been cheating on him for months. Yes, he will definitely find out someday, but after more than 20 years with his wife and their twins, parting with them would break the poor guy's heart. On his way home from work, Vernon checked the yellow note taped to his steering wheel to remind himself to buy a Valentine's Day card for Denise. He tried to remember the last time they exchanged cards for Cupid's holiday, but it must have been many years ago. The corner store next to his house was still open when he pulled up, so he checked out their stock of cards. There wasn't much choice, even the cards on the top shelf weren't as pretty as the one he received. He bought one of the more expensive ones just in case, but decided to buy the best one in town on Tuesday, where there were several specialty card shops downtown. He had to reheat food left in the refrigerator because Denise, as the county mayor, had to preside over a late council meeting and had left a note magnetically attached to the refrigerator door to let him know. Although it was an emergency meeting, Vernon knew it had been scheduled since last Friday. As he relaxed and ate the tasteless food, he thought about Valentine's Day and his conversation with Terry Jones, finally remembering her last name. She had started working temporarily for 20 hours a week from the middle of last week. With pressure on the planning department to produce a local plan covering housing policy and needs for the next decade, every permanent member of staff was on edge. Finding trained planners willing to work full-time was difficult. Therefore, the department's budget for the last couple of years and the next half of the year included 60 hours per week of additional temporary staff, with a gradual reduction to 0 by the end of the next fiscal year. Terry was assigned to administrative work, updating plan requests, sending standard responses, and handling various email consultations. She seemed very good at working on the computer and was pleasant to look at. Denise arrived home quite late, around 10 to 11. After blowing a kiss to Vernon, who came out of the living room to meet her, she took off her 3-inch heels. Oh, I've been dreaming of taking off these damn shoes for a long time, Denise grimaced. I wore them for 14 hours in a row, and they killed me from the very second hour. Would you like me to massage them, honey? Vernon offered, following her into the hallway. Oh, that's nice, but I'm desperate to take a shower. I really stink, and my feet must stink even worse after such a long day, and I'm incredibly tired. She simply ran up the stairs to the bathroom to take a shower. Do you want me to make you something to eat and pop? Vernon suggested, shouting up the stairs. No, honey, she shouted down. We had sandwiches brought to an emergency cabinet meeting on the budget, and I had a quick gin and tonic at the Jolly Postman with most of the cabinet members after the meeting. The next morning, as soon as he arrived around 9, Vernon found a lonely invitation card in an envelope on his desk, along with a second Valentine. The ticket was for a Valentine's Day dinner and dance on Saturday at a posh and expensive hotel on the outskirts of town, a level 1 security-listed building, and it was a black tie affair. This meant he needed to rent a tuxedo, which he did online shortly after logging in, as he had already had to do so a couple of times in the 9 months that Denise had been mayor. Terry was glowing when she walked into the department 10 minutes before her 10 a.m. start time. She placed her bag on the table and looked at Vernon expectantly, raising her eyebrows with her usual smile. Vernon relaxed, smiled, and waved at her. He was sure she had skipped all the way to his desk as she approached. He pulled an envelope from the drawer. It was lying on top of the first one he had received yesterday. "Oh, another card," she exclaimed, placing one hand on his shoulder and leaning next to him, her fresh, light scent teasing his nostrils. "What do you think, Vern? Is this a new fan fueling the intrigue or the same fan confirming her rights to your heart?" "I think it's the same one. The envelope has the same font as before, and there are 3 X's on the back again." "Yes, I agree. There are too many coincidences for 2 different girls to choose the same font. Maybe someone saw yesterday's envelope and decided to make it more mysterious." "What did your wife say when you mentioned receiving a card?" "Honestly, by the time she returned home from her meeting, I had already forgotten about it. If she sent it herself, she didn't mention it or even hint about it." I heard that your wife is very busy being the mayor and all. How do you feel about her being the boss?" "I have no problem with it. I supported her in all the elections. She was a respected parish councilor for 15 years and a force to be reckoned with in the area for 11 years. She's a good advisor and deserves her success and her time in the top job. Not too busy to send you a card or 2. Vern, you should say something to her, especially now that you have 2 cards. If she sent them, you don't want her to think you got them from your mistress, right? Even if she didn't send them, knowing that you have someone, or several women, who are not indifferent to you will add a little jealousy and might increase your wife's libido. You could get even more luck at home than you already have, Vern. Or maybe you really do have a mysterious secret admirer. How exciting. Do you find cheating exciting?" Terry looked shocked. "Are you joking?" "Never. I just think that Valentine's Day cards are just harmless entertainment and shouldn't be taken seriously. I mean, when we were kids, we used to get dozens of cards and gifts of candy, and it didn't mean anything. Maybe a couple of lovers are too shy to say anything, but for us girls, it was just a good boost to self-esteem, nothing more. Then I kept all my cards. One guy always wrote a beautiful poem in his postcards, and I never found out who he was. By the time we graduated from school and I left home, he had just stopped sending them. I'm sure you remember all your cards, right, Vern?" "No, I never received one." "What? Not one? Handsome and good guy like you?" "That can't be true." "No, not at school or college. Until I started courting Denise when I was 24. And yes, I wrote little poems in the first half-dozen cards. See, I knew you were a romantic at heart. Is there a poem in this card?" "No, but when I opened the card, out came a ticket for dinner and dancing. This is a ticket for one person only. I saw an advertisement for this ball. Tickets are really expensive, and it's a full black tie event with a live swing band. The posters have been up around the city for several months now, and this isn't just a ball but a full 3-course meal with wine. Do you know what that means, Vern?" "No. Only that I had to order a rented tuxedo this morning. Besides that, Vern, look. It's a full meal, which means you'll be sitting next to your favorite Valentine on Saturday night. Right? So, if I'm sitting next to an ancient old duchess draped in pearls and family jewels that are all mine, along with her family estate when she kicks off 2 weeks after our honeymoon, I'd better refrain from pinching her thigh until you see who's sitting on the other side, Vern. It could be your Mrs. Ray Harrison or one of your employees here secretly lusting after your body." They looked around the room. Vicky is 32 years old, happily married to Darren, and they have 2 children, so not her. Terry began. Julie is 23 years old and engaged to Jason, the roofer. They will get married in April. I think Carr is 28, married her second husband just last year, and has a 12-year-old son who visits them every weekend and a preschool-age daughter from her first marriage. Her ex lives in London, so he comes over once a month, takes her daughter for Saturday, and goes home in the evening. The other 2 temps are Linda, 50 but looks 35, happily married with 2 grown daughters, and finally Lissa, 19, a Syrian refugee engaged to Al, with whom she fell in love in a refugee camp in Italy and is now studying for a doctorate. God, you know all this, and you've been here for less than a week. I'm a people person, Vern. I do my job, but I like meeting new people. I talk to them, and well, they like to tell me about themselves. For a moment, I thought you were just being nosy, he chuckled, hoping that she would take his slight jab as a joke. She actually laughed. See, I told HR that you can't be as boring as they said. Is it true? No, I'm kidding. They didn't say anything about you at all. Vicky will just show me everything because you will be too busy with your work. Often in temporary work around the city, I hardly see the head of the department, only my immediate supervisor. She smiled. The boss usually sits in a separate office, like that meeting room in the corner. Vernon smiled. It was the boss's office, but when I took over the department, I didn't want to be cut off from our little team. So we only use it for meetings, personal conversations, employee evaluations, and the like. So you are a boss who is always on the spot, right? Boss. She squeezed Vernon's shoulder, released him, and began to walk around the table. Or at least I'm there and within reach, he replied with a smile. Well, don't forget a card for your wife, Denise, right? Valentine's Day is tomorrow. Remember? I'll buy it for lunch, he assured her. He sent Denise a message that afternoon thanking her for sending him 2 Valentine's cards and an invitation. When Vernon returned home, he mentioned the invitation to Denise again and pinned the ticket to the refrigerator. Denise stopped stirring the pot and looked at the ticket. Why only 1 ticket, dear? It clearly states admission for 1. I was hoping you would answer this question, my dear. I told you in a text today that I received a Valentine's Day card yesterday and an invitation and card today, but you didn't respond. I assumed you were my only romantic suitor and that this single ticket was just another little mystery from you. To be honest, honey, I didn't send you that card yesterday, and I definitely didn't send you that ticket today. And I mean definitely. I would be very angry if you decided to use it this Saturday. You know that I'm leaving for London for courses on Friday and Saturday. She returned to the pan and began stirring until she could remove the Teflon coating. So who is this laughing girl who sends postcards? She hissed through clenched teeth. I have no idea. I talked to one of the temporary employees. She saw the postcards and was, well, curious. More like a curious Varvara. Well, she's a woman. I thought you said she was a girl, Denise screamed. Well, compared to some of the others in the office, yeah, she's just a girl. I think she's only a few years older than her daughters. After dinner, which was eaten in a cold atmosphere, Vernon checked online to see if he could buy another ticket to the ball in case Denise decided to cancel the course in London. The site thanked him for the request, but all tickets had been sold out last week. The evening and night continued in a rather cold atmosphere. It was all because of 2 anonymous Valentines, which were separating a couple married for over 21 years. Vernon left for work early the next morning, but not before leaving a Valentine's Day card for his wife on the kitchen table next to the coffee pot he had prepared for her. He took his morning tea in a thermos. The planning department office was empty when he arrived. However, on his desk, he found a beautiful flower arrangement along with another pastel card, clearly a Valentine's card. He opened it with trembling hands. The envelope was again hand-printed, and a romantic poem was added to the card, along with the usual 3 X's on the back. So whoever left these messages for him had to come to the office on Tuesday evening. It wasn't Denise, she had been at home all evening. Perhaps it was several people, a conspiracy? But what was the purpose of leaving 3 cards in a row, he wondered. He laughed at himself. In fact, having all the girls in the office conspiring couldn't be worse than being targeted by a single stalker. I mean, he almost said out loud in the quiet office, I'm an average guy in my mid-40s. I wasn't particularly handsome even in my youth, and now I'm an average man with 2 kids in college, a smart and attractive wife, and a settled lifestyle. The flowers gave him an idea, so he ordered a bouquet to pick up at lunch and bring home in the evening. There weren't any major events that day, which was another reason he'd let Denise sleep in. But he didn't want to risk sending a bouquet home in case she happened to go out shopping or do something else on her free day. When he got home, he found a Valentine's Day card that Denise had signed with a note on the refrigerator. She had gone out for another meeting, this time for their home parish plan, a regular monthly meeting that Vernon was well aware of. Denise had left the dinner she had prepared during the day for him to heat up in the microwave. He was still wondering if the other cards were from Denise or someone else, as the card she left him looked a lot like the cheap one he bought on Monday at the corner store and rejected because it looked too cheap compared to the one he had received on Monday. The one he left for Denise on Wednesday was much better quality than this one. Exhausted from working on the local plan all week and alone with his thoughts, he put the flowers in a vase and went to bed before Denise got home. He was up early again before she was. This is going too far, he thought. Another Valentine's card on my desk, this time with the printed message that Valentine's Day doesn't end until the Valentine's Ball on Saturday. Enclosed in the card was confirmation of a reservation at the luxury hotel hosting the ball. There was no price on it, it was covered up, but there was a stamp saying it was paid in full in cash. The card sat on top of a package wrapped in gift paper that contained a set of 3 silk boxers. He had never worn boxers before and had always preferred briefs, seeing no reason to change. But these had a luxurious feel to them, like the few silk blouses Denise wore from time to time. A printed note with a short message read, "Wear one and take the other 2 with you, one for Sunday morning and a spare just in case." "Oh, what's happening?" he said out loud in the empty office. "This is getting really scary." All week, Terry had been interested in his cards, comments on them, and gifts. Today was no exception. She smirked when she saw the hotel reservation. "This is definitely your wife, Vern. Looks like she's going to ensure your luck this weekend." Vernon decided not to tell her that Denise was leaving that weekend for a course that was of interest to both counselors and permanent council staff. Even Vernon had received a basic rundown of the new record-keeping rules that would go into effect in a couple of months. For the mayor, who was in charge of the council and in the public eye, it was important to have a better understanding of the new law. Denise had told him about her participation in the course over a month ago, so he was sure that this Valentine's sender, whoever she was not Denise, his beloved wife. Everyone else in the office was really busy that day. Vernon insisted that no one was overloaded, work was shared between staff if necessary to ensure that all deadlines and procedures for reviewing planning applications were met, and that other planning matters were handled within a reasonable time. That's why temporary employees like Terry were hired, because the pressure to release a local plan threatened to compromise day-to-day work. When he returned home, Vernon found another note on the refrigerator door, stating that the dinner in the refrigerator could be reheated in the microwave. It also said that Denise had to leave early again for an unscheduled meeting with developers who were presenting a potential new housing estate. As a result, she left dinner for him, as she would not be home to have dinner with him. To hell with this, he shouted into the void and decided to have dinner at the pub. He drank several Alesh and then brandy. When he went home, Denise was already asleep. He set the coffee to brew and forced himself to drink 2 cups and a glass of water before bed. Despite this, he woke up with a slight headache. Denise was already up and dressed when Vernon got up and took a shower. He couldn't stay long or take a sick day today. The council's chief executive had scheduled a 9 a.m. briefing for all department heads, and Vernon needed to be at the meeting to give an update on the final version of the local plan, which was due to be presented to the councilor's executive committee in 3 weeks. Following this briefing, he had a scheduled meeting with the chair of the planning committee, Councilor Mrs. Cynthia Springett, to discuss any new planning applications that particularly needed the councilor's discussion and decisions. Most non-contentious planning applications were delegated to officers for approval in accordance with policies set by law or the county council. It usually took him a couple of hours to review the plans and decide on the agenda for the meeting in 10 days. Denise was due to meet the chief executive in the late morning and travel by train to London to attend a workshop on Saturday about new data retention rules that would come into force in 2 months. She needed to stay overnight on Friday and Saturday and wanted to do some shopping in the West End on Friday afternoon, so Vernon drove her to the council office at 9 a.m. Since they were running a little late, Vernon had to go straight to the small committee room for the department head's briefing, where Denise sat as an observer to save time before her next meeting. Following the meeting, Chief Executive Matt Jones, his deputy Mrs. Janice Merton, Council Leader Councilor Bob Roberts, and the Mayor, Councilor Mrs. Denise Harrison, retired to the Chief Executive's office to discuss the monthly full council meeting on Monday evening. When Vernon got to his desk, he found another Valentine's card. It was in a red and orange envelope, definitely not a business manila or plain white envelope used for regular mail. Terry was already waiting for her meeting to end so she could see what the card said. "Hey, Vern. Good meeting, she asked, timing her move to meet him at his desk as soon as he returned. It's the same as always, he muttered, hesitating before sitting down. I think you want to see me open my new card. Of course. I checked your table as soon as I arrived, she laughed. If we still had kettles in the kitchen instead of hot water on tap, I would have thought about steaming it and taking a peek. Okay, I'll put you out of your misery, Vernon chuckled, unable to help but laugh at her impatience. She was unconsciously bouncing from foot to foot, and he felt like he couldn't take his eyes off her. But he was very aware of her breasts swaying in his peripheral vision, which even her loose top couldn't completely hide. When he opened the card, it was different from the others, less colorful. The cover featured champagne in a bucket and filled glasses, with bubbles, ribbons, and bows, but the card itself was just as high quality as the rest. Someone, Vernon thought, had chosen these cards carefully and tastefully. Inside this card, there were no pop-up elements, just a printed message in a font similar to the previous ones. I hope, like me, you're looking forward to the ball on Saturday night. And don't tell your cat wife, I'm sure she'll let the mice play while the cat is out of the house for the night. Also in the envelope was a coupon for a fashionable men's hair salon, including an appointment for a day of hairstyling, shaving, body massage, manicure, and pedicure on Saturday. Oh, that's juicy. Terry commented. You get a nice treat while your secret Valentine benefits from a handsome, clean-shaven, relaxed man with no sharp toenails to scare her off. Vern, you should go on Saturday just to find out who this caring angel is. No, I don't have to go, Vernon replied. Remember, I'm a married man. Take your wife with you then and let her enjoy the ball, the bedroom, and whatever else you can think of for her afterward. I only have one ticket. Then go to the website and buy another one. It's probably too late to receive it in the mail, but you can ask them to leave it at the hotel reception for collection. No, they were completely sold out a long time ago. I checked on the internet on Tuesday evening. Then take her with you. Arrive early, grab your room key as soon as you arrive, and leave your wife in the room so she can shower, order room service, and a bottle of champagne while waiting for you to return. She'll love it, especially if you can laugh at whoever did it. You can enjoy it at the expense of your secret admirer, as the letter said, everything is paid in advance. No, that's not possible. Denise is on a course in London this weekend and won't be back until Sunday afternoon. Terry said, lowering her voice to a whisper. Maybe this course she supposedly went to isn't the real course, and she's planning on surprising you by showing up at the ball and driving you crazy all night. Have a great time, Vern. Vernon thought the best way to end this embarrassment was to say he'd think about whether or not to go and sent Terry off to do her errands. As she headed back to her desk, Vernon couldn't help but glance at her. Looking up, he noticed Larry watching him with a knowing smirk on his face. Vernon shrugged as if to say, "Hey, what would you be looking at?" And Larry nodded in response with sympathy, "Same thing, I know. What else could we watch that compares to this perfection?" Denise called Vernon on his cell phone 20 minutes later, saying she was ready and coming down to the hall. He drove her to the train station, telling her that he had received another Valentine's card and a coupon for a haircut. "You don't need a haircut, honey, you just got it last week," she remarked. "Yeah, I had a regular short haircut, but that's a full-blown cut, or at least as much as a guy can get," he replied. "Well, there wasn't anything about waxing." "Just don't do anything I wouldn't do, honey," she smiled as she got out of the car at the train station with her overnight bag. Vernon returned to work, but his head was full of thoughts about the mysterious series of Valentine's cards, and he couldn't be productive at his desk. In the afternoon, he went to inspect a construction site, which helped him feel useful and clear his head. But instead of returning to the office, he finished work an hour early. When Vernon returned home to a cold, dark, empty house, he found a note from the delivery service saying that his neighbors had taken his package. He knocked on old lady Matthews's door, and she handed him a long, soft parcel, which obviously contained a rented tailcoat for the next day. He unpacked it and hung it in the bedroom to air. It was almost lunchtime on a Friday, and the train to London was empty. Denise placed her overnight bag on the seat next to her rather than lifting it onto the rack. As soon as she sat down and took the tablet out of her bag, the train started moving and soon picked up speed. It was an express train with only half a dozen stops along the way. It was only after she had exhaled and relaxed, about to open the e-reader to the page she had left off on in her favorite author's latest novel, that she realized not only had Vernon not kissed her when she got out of the car, but she hadn't bothered to lean over to the driver's side and kiss him goodbye. It was as if they simply took each other for granted. This made her think, and she put the tablet down. She honestly couldn't remember the last time they kissed, said goodbye, or greeted each other, even just saying good morning. Although they had been together for 22 years and married for over 21 years, they had once always kissed in the mornings and evenings. But they, or rather she, had let this display of affection slip away unnoticed recently. Until now, she realized that over the past few months, she had been so engrossed in her affair that she had been ignoring her husband. Intim? She had enough, about 4 or 5 times a week. She didn't need to try her luck at home. This meant that either Vernon received nothing at all, or he received it somewhere else. And now she was heading out for 2 full days and nights of intimate with her lover, leaving her husband in the care of some seductress who was trying to get him. Okay, she thought. The course on the new European data protection laws coming into force in May was just a 2-hour briefing and was really just an excuse to spend the night with her lover, Harry. Harry had persuaded her to add a Friday night as an excuse for a shopping opportunity in the West End on Friday afternoon and evening. In fact, the train journey was a double deception. She couldn't be seen going to London in Harry's car, and she couldn't bring many things home. So, she pre-ordered a dozen items from 6 different national chains with stores in the West End online, which would be delivered on Monday. This way, she and Harry could have an intim all day and evening on Friday and Saturday, and she could avoid intimate at home. She tried to remember the last time she had a night with her husband. It took a couple of minutes of thought, but she was sure it had been before Christmas. Vernon had initiated it a couple of times before that, but she had turned him down. That time, she just couldn't refuse. The girls had gone to a party to meet friends, and the long-married couple were alone for the first time in days. She had not been to a real meeting or a fake one. It was when she actually had a night with Harry Cox. It wasn't that she didn't love Vernon anymore. He was still the same sweet and loving man he had been throughout their 22 years together. He proved he was still good in bed that night on Christmas Eve. They showered together and cuddled on the couch, waiting for the girls to return around midnight to wish them a Merry Christmas before making love again. It was wonderful, and she felt warm and happy. But 2 days later, she was having a night with Harry again in an apartment his wife didn't know about, which he had furnished and maintained for his extramarital affairs. Vernon was sweet and loving, making her feel relaxed, satisfied, and loved. Harry, on the other hand, was a stimulating energizer. She did, but mostly because it was gross, obscene, and sinful. He had an intim with her everywhere, in his car, in the kitchen, in his apartment, on the balcony in the summer, and even in the garage under his house, bent over the hood of his Lexus right after he bought a new model in September. She was now heading to a hotel room where she would be treated 3 to 4 times per session, Friday afternoon, Friday evening, Saturday morning, afternoon, and evening, and Sunday morning. That's 18 to 24 sessions in one weekend, whereas at home, she had no intimate with her husband at all in January or February and only 4 times in December, 2 of which were on the same night. A total of 4 times in almost a quarter of the year. She had only been with Harry once this week when she told Vernon she was going to a ward planning meeting. So she knew Harry would be raring to go as soon as she arrived. Now for the first time, Denise wondered if she was jeopardizing her future and if this affair was worth it. Once Vernon finishes the local plan and the end of this project is already in sight, perhaps she should repair her relationship with the love of her life. She loved Vernon, or so she thought, and when this affair with Harry came to its natural conclusion, she knew that Harry would replace her with a younger model and she would happily return to Vernon. She had no illusions about what kind of man Harry Cox was. He was a developer and a particularly callous landlord, a big fish in a small pond, often clashing with the Planning and Standards Board. Most of the homeless people in the area, sleeping on the streets, were former tenants. Harry must have taken particular satisfaction in having the mayor as well as the husband of the head of one of the council departments that was causing him the most problems in his business. Until now, she believed that meetings with Harry Cox were just more night and that she still fulfilled her marital duties to Vernon. Now she realized that she was seriously neglecting her husband, and now he was being pursued by some rival with these damned Valentines and this Walper's ball. Maybe, she thought, this weekend should be the finale. She would tell Harry tonight or tomorrow that it was over between them on Sunday so she could focus on repairing her marriage before she lost Vernon forever. At that moment, her phone rang. The caller ID showed it was Harry, although she had it listed as Consultant 1 on her phone in case Vernon ever saw it. "What the hell does he want now?" she said out loud. She pressed the green button. "What do you need?" she asked sharply. "Hey, honey, caught at the wrong time, sorry. Yeah, I had a couple of meetings this morning, and to be honest, I'm worried about Vernon and those damn Valentines he's getting." "Oh yeah, I remember you said he got one the other day." "So what?" "Someone must be really desperate to send Valentines to such a weakling." "He's not a weakling." "Oh, so why are you having an intim with me and not this weakling?" Denise suddenly became angry. "Yes, why am I doing this?" "Because you're a first-class kitty, and I'm the alpha male who can fill that kitty up like no other." "Listen, honey, I hear you're on the train. I'm just entering the congestion zone, so I'll be at the hotel about the same time as you in London. I'll unpack and order coffee and snacks while you catch the tube. Okay?" "Yeah, okay," she sighed. "See you in about 45 minutes. Denise checked in and received a second key card before taking the elevator to the top floor of the hotel. She entered the room and heard her lover's raised voice talking on the phone in the living room. She had placed her overnight bag there before he angrily threw the phone at the hotel wall, scattering pieces of plastic across the floor. "What's happening?" she asked, placing a hand on his shoulder to stop him from stepping on the rubble. He was barefoot, in a robe, and had probably already taken a shower while waiting for her to arrive. He turned to her, purple with rage. "It's your vile husband costing me thousands of pounds on the block of pension flats I'm building on Osborne Road." "What did he do?" "He visited the site this afternoon to inspect the foundations. Looking at the excavated ground, he guessed that we hadn't dug the foundations deep enough." "And you really didn't dig it up well?" "The standards are too strict, so sometimes we go to some lengths. Larry in the planning office and his previous boss usually just signed them off in exchange for a couple of favors." "Oh no, you didn't." "Maybe they did. I'll leave it up to the superintendent to work to the plans and adapt as needed. Anyway, Vernon had my foreman dig the area, and it was 4 inches below the minimum level. So now, I'll have to do whatever it takes, dig down another 6 inches, and then rep our fresh concrete. You can't just add 6 more inches of concrete on top because it's all underground." "Right. I'm trying to fit 4 floors into an area where there is a height restriction. I already have a minimum ceiling height in the apartments, and there's barely room to stand in the attic space where the water and heating tanks are stored. I either dig up the foundations again or lose 6 apartments on the top floor with magnificent views of the valley for £300,000 each. But Vernon almost never does inspections. He usually sends Larry. I think he just wanted to get out of the office. I walked in quietly yesterday morning, and he was surrounded by office girls looking at his Valentines. He even had flowers on his desk. I wouldn't be surprised if they were pansies. He probably got angry because I wasn't getting intimate at home and decided to unwind. It was bad luck that he ran into my construction site. Do you think he knows about us, or does anyone in the office know?" "Of course not. We were very careful." He put his arm around her waist and pulled her close. "Now that you're here, let's get this done quickly and then go have some tea." She pushed him away. "Let me take a shower first. I'm all dirty after the meetings and the trip by train." "No, dear. I want you for who you are, even more appetizing than usual. Besides, I need to remove my aggression towards yours by giving you what I deserve, and he doesn't." Denise was away until Sunday afternoon, so Vernon was alone when the mail arrived around 9 a.m. There was the 6th Valentine's card in a row, again printed in a script-like font with the caption, "See you tonight, love. P.S. I booked us a honeymoon suite for our first time together." XXX, for a moment, he thought it might be Denise trying to add some excitement to their family life, so he decided to go. Maybe this weird weekend course was just a ploy, perhaps that's why she packed an overnight bag with nicely lingerie. He sneaked a peek while she was preparing breakfast on Friday morning. After making tea and a light breakfast of toast and marmalade, he checked his emails and downloads on his smartphone to make sure everything was in order. His face showed no surprise, only disappointment. Before getting dressed, he tried on the tuxedo and trousers he had received yesterday. The suit fit so well that it was probably the same one he had rented before. Denise had suggested that he get his own, especially since she had been mayor for at least 2 years and there were enough events to justify including clothes for the mayor's spouse in the mayor's budget. But Vernon insisted that he really wasn't a man for evening wear. After a light lunch at the Bear Pub, he strolled down Main Street to cut above the rest, a gentleman's hairdressing emporium, for his prepaid treatment. Although he had just had a 10-pound haircut at Barry's salon last week, they still found some hair to cut. After a relaxing massage and a nail trim and file, the straight razor shave, which he had been a little wary of, was so relaxing that by the time he left the barber shop a couple of hours later, he felt so good that he thought he could handle the world. He even bought a bag of latex products last night just in case. Briskly heading towards the multi-story car park, he returned home, changed into his new silk boxers, sharp white shirt, bow tie, and tuxedo. He packed his overnight bag, grabbed his ticket and reservation from the fridge, and drove to the hotel. The honeymoon suite was dominated by an old-fashioned 4-poster bed, and he noted a shower for 2. He sat down on the bed, suddenly feeling tired. There were 4 hours left before the ball started. He stripped down to his boxers and carefully hung up his suit, shirt, and tie. He crawled under the covers and set the alarm for 3 o'clock. He must have been completely relaxed after the massage, as he fell into a deep sleep within minutes. When Vernon's alarm clock rang and awakened him, he was in the middle of a dream where he was making love and deeply immersed in the enjoyment of carnal pleasures with a beautiful woman whose physical features were outstanding but whose face was unclear. The alarm clock gradually intruded on his perfect sleep, and he ignored it repeatedly until he sat up straight in the unfamiliar and dark bedroom. He followed the sound of the alarm clock, confused by the fabric surrounding the 4-poster bed, which had somehow been closed while he slept. It took him a moment to find the slit in the curtain before he pulled it aside and found his phone on the nightstand to turn off the screaming alarm clock. He was shocked to find that he had overslept by an hour and must have missed the repeating alarms muffled by the curtains and the depth of his undisturbed sleep. The night light on the opposite side of the bed was still on. He groped around the bed, eyes still half closed, pushing aside the curtains of the bed as he went. He saw a modest pink negligee laid out on the unused side of the double bed. She, and it was clearly a she, had been in the room while he slept, and now she was gone. A visit to the bathroom helped him open his eyes so he could see more clearly. Several feminine products had magically appeared on the bathroom shelf, including a new box of different rubber products from the ones he had left in his overnight bag. The bedroom wardrobe revealed a change of women's clothing but gave Vernon no clues about his new partner. It certainly wasn't Denise, who planned to sleep with him that night. It wasn't her stuff, and there was no need to stock up on latex contraception since her hysterectomy shortly after giving birth to their twins, due to the discovery of a cyst on her ovaries. In addition, he now knew for sure that she was far away and completely occupied that night, as she had been the previous night and day. He remembered his wonderful dream. He had not made love to his wife in his sleep, and he suddenly felt both sadness about that fact and excitement about the possibilities this night might bring. This spurred him to dress quickly, which, in his anxiety, meant he had to try 3 times to tie the unusual bow tie before he was ready to leave the room. A glance at his phone told him he was already 20 minutes late, and the device's battery was down to single digits, so he plugged it into the charger and left it on the nightstand on his side of the bed to check later. Downstairs, he looked at the table plan at the entrance to the ballroom to find his table, which was to the right of the stage where a small jazz ensemble was playing a set before food was served. 6 couples were dancing. Finally, the list revealed the name of the person who sent the valentines. Vernon headed around the dance floor. As he approached the table, the lovely Terry stood up, smiling at him, and walked towards him to meet him halfway. "You're late," she said. "The waiters warned us that appetizers would be served after a couple of numbers, and I was going to go get you." She smiled. "Well, I'm here now." Vernon returned her smile without taking his eyes off hers. He added, touching her hands and kissing her offered cheek, "You look absolutely stunning." Up close, her red hair was curled and seemed larger than in the office, like a halo of fire around her beautiful face. She wore a sparkly cream-colored cocktail dress with thin shoulder straps to hold it in place and to keep her breasts from spilling out. It showed off her black mid-thigh stockings. Vernon thought she was absolutely gorgeous. "Thank you, Vern. You look very elegant too. Are you fully rested now?" She smiled, returning his kiss with a kiss on the cheek. "Yes, I slept like a baby. I think my present thoughts, however, would not allow me to sleep in innocence any longer. Let's dance, Vern," she whispered in his ear, her red lips still close to his cheek. "I need to talk to you, and the walls have ears." They walked hand in hand to the center of the dance floor. The orchestra began to play another slow, romantic tune. As they turned to look at each other closely, Terry said, "Vern, I need to talk, and you need to listen to me from start to finish without interrupting or walking away. Can you do that, dear?" Vernon let go of her right arm to wrap his arm around her waist and pulled her closer, cheek to cheek, before moving to the beat of the waltz. Terry pressed herself against him, and they moved as one. "We're probably being watched, Vern, and what's happening this weekend is intended to be used against you. Well, I'm holding you in my arms now, and Denise told me not to come." "Quiet, don't talk, dear." He nodded silently. "I'm here because I'm being blackmailed," Terry said. "Of course they're blackmailing," Vernon replied. "I knew it was all a setup, and I know who's behind it." "Don't go, Vern. Please listen to me. Under normal circumstances, I would be happy to dance with you. You are a wonderful person and too good for your wife to treat you like that. She is a stupid expletive." She moved her head away and looked into his eyes. "I'm sorry, Vern. I'm so angry at the way she treats you, us. That's all I know. She's a stupid and selfish expletive, even if she hasn't realized how stupid she is yet." Vernon turned her around and continued to dance with her. "So why are you being blackmailed, and what exactly are you supposed to do to me?" "Well, they're blackmailing both me and my mom for something we did together a few years ago. She won't tell me who exactly is blackmailing us. She says she doesn't know for sure, but they know enough to ruin both of us and put her away in prison for many years, with me as an accomplice." "I know who it is," Vernon said, his jaw clenching. "You know?" She looked into his eyes. "I thought maybe it was your wife trying to catch you doing something, but I guess you don't usually do such things." "No, I don't. I've always been faithful. I don't know any other way. I guessed who it was and now I have proof. I assure you, it's not Denise. She would be horrified if I found out, so she wouldn't deliberately wave it in my face. So he wants more than just us dancing together?" "Yes. The bedroom is equipped for recording sound and video. I looked around a little earlier, but I don't have a clear idea of what to look for. There are many ways to record bedroom scenes, Terry. One of them is a wide-angle lens and microphone in an overnight bag, with a battery sewn into the lining, running via Bluetooth through the cheating spouse's cell phone and streaming to the husband's phone via an app. This could be set remotely or on a timer and once activated responds to noise or movement. There's always a risk of leaving a device like this in your closet, relying on sound alone. But judging by how quickly my phone's battery drains, I have plenty of material for it. My divorce lawyer. I knew you were a lot smarter than me, so I thought you could come up with something. To get me off the hook, Vern, I need you to come up to the room with me. I'll try to seduce you, and you must reject me and resolutely leave the room in anger." "Okay, of course I can do it," he smiled. "We need to make this believable. I have to try everything to make it seem like I really tried. So I want you to relax, maybe have a drink with me, then kiss and hug until I go too far, and you will not swear that you want to remain faithful to your loving wife. I will try to hold you, strip without anything, even use tears, but you must resist and leave in order to remain innocent and show that I really tried to seduce you." "I can do it," he stopped. "However, if you are not going to make love, then why are there contraceptives in the bathroom?" "I didn't say that I was against the possibility of our love, Vern. Contraceptives are insurance in case I misunderstand you and you end up like every other man who has ever been near me and takes from me what I was forced to give. I've never had a real boyfriend, so I've never taken the pill. I guess I'm a virgin in love, never had anyone to love or be loved until now. She looked into his eyes. I hope we can be honest if we're going to trust each other, Terry. I don't want to get hurt, and I don't want you or your mother to get hurt because of my involvement. Tell me, why are you being blackmailed? She looked deeply into Vernon's eyes before speaking, tears beginning to fill her eyes. Yes, Vern, my love. I think I can trust you. I've never told anyone this before. You can trust me. I will treat this conversation as if it never happened, including you telling me about your mother. Who is she, by the way? She works in HR, Hilda Bankstone, Vernon guessed, and Terry nodded. She was supposed to help you with the cards? Yes, she did. Well, she was a widow, remarried, and then divorced, so she went back to her maiden name, Bankstone. That's why we have different last names. My father was Corporal John Jones, deceased. What did you and Hilda do that would attract blackmail? My father was in the army. He died overseas, and my mother remarried to another soldier, a family friend. She thought my stepfather tried to have a night with me, threatening to strangle us both if I told my mother. She never knew or suspected anything. I also left home, ended up on the street, and was picked up by a man who turned out to be a pimp. At first, everything was fine. It wasn't cold outside, there were regular meals, and a gentle lover who was nice to me at first. Then he began to take me and other girls under his control to businessmen's parties, many parties. He beat me if I did not participate in games and did not pretend that I liked it. Then he beat me even more, especially when I got pregnant with Josie. I called. The music stopped while the orchestra turned over its sheets. All the dancers remained in their seats while several other couples walked up to take their places on the dance floor, making it a little tighter. Terry lowered her voice even more when the music resumed. One day, while he was in the shower, leaving me on the living room floor with a black eye, I used his phone to call my mother and describe to her as best I could where I was. Mom watched the apartment for a day or two until she found out about the pimp's habits. One morning, when he opened the door, she pushed him back into the room and beat him with my father's baseball bat. When she saw my condition and what he did to me, I could not leave the apartment for several days. We collected all the evidence of my existence, wiped everything down, and left that apartment without regrets. No one has found us in the last 9.5 years, and Josie and I still live quietly with our mother. But someone must have found out who I was, someone who lived here and recognized me. My mother and I have never told this story to anyone, Vern, but you're more than just anyone. You won't say anything about what my mom did, right? We never had this conversation. Terry, I know your mother to be a strict and principled woman. Well, she's also ex-military. She trains hard and can take care of herself. You and your mom don't have to worry, Terry. With what I have on Harry Cox and the mayor, it would be in everyone's best interest to keep everyone's secrets. The music ended again. The leader of the orchestra announced that they were taking a break while the main course was served. Do you want to go to the room now, Vern? No, let's enjoy dinner. I'd like to dance with you some more. We just have to be careful how much we drink so you can go home after you leave the room. They walked to the table holding hands. I booked another room here, Terry. It's smaller than the one Cox booked, but it's comfortable and no one will spy on what we do or don't do. I left my overnight bag there when I first arrived. So you knew it was a setup? I figured it out. Look at me, Terry. No one sends an old guy like me Valentine's cards or invitations to a ball in a bedroom with all expenses paid and bonuses. Don't underestimate yourself, Vern. Any girl would love to be with you, especially tonight. You look like James Bond, smell so good, and have the confidence of being attractive without an ounce of arrogance. You seem more confident, too. Vernon laughed. But I think you could feel how I felt about you while we were dancing. I'm sorry about that. She laughed. No need to apologize, Vern. It's a great compliment, and despite the awkward circumstances, I think I'm going to enjoy this evening. She stopped him on the edge of the dance floor, put her arms around his neck, ruffled his hair at the back of his head, kissed his smooth cheek, and whispered in his ear, I love what they did to your hair, honey. So cute. Your room is a double. Don't you want my company later? Regardless of whether it is a double or not, yes and yes, Vernon smiled, kissing her softly on the lips. Vernon had long had suspicions that his wife was having an affair. He was even more worried when she was so distracted while he tried to make love to her on Christmas Eve, during Christmas and New Year, a quiet time for council members. The bogus course she announced in London was too ridiculous to ignore. He began checking her appointments, scheduled council meetings, and visits while being publicly available. It was more difficult to identify her opponent. He had suspicions and a possible motive in Harry Cox. Realizing that while others in his department were corrupt, Vernon adamantly refused it. He had no way of finding proof until Denise announced her trip to London the weekend before Valentine's Day. An internet search led him to a fisheye lens, and he found it easy to install and use on her overnight bag. He was left to rely on luck in placing her or to use the microphone to obtain the evidence necessary to confront his wife in her desire to preserve her public reputation in the event of a quiet, uncontrolled divorce. Denise knew nothing about the Valentine's cameras in Vernon's hotel room or about blackmailing the girl. When Denise told Harry Cox that it was over between them that Saturday night, Cox told her how much he had invested in keeping her as a mistress and trying to keep Vernon as a puppet that he could manipulate into planning for her to hit him in the face. Vernon's fisheye camera recorded the brutal beating inflicted on poor Denise. Because this recording was included in her divorce papers, Denise was able to file charges, for which Cox received a 3-year sentence for grievous bodily harm. It is common knowledge that prisoners and guards do not approve of beating women. Cox's misfortunes continued when Larry, Vernon's previous boss at the Borough Planning Department, was sued for corruption. Building inspections on all of Cox's buildings led to additional damages, charges, and fines that bankrupted him and his business. Soon after, his ex-wife took everything from him. Some of his construction practices were so scandalous in their disregard for statutory responsibilities to users, purchasers, and third parties that another decade was added to his prison sentence, to be served concurrently. Denise lost her seat on the district council in the May elections and did not serve a second term as mayor. Her party also suffered side effects, losing the comfortable majority they had held in the council for many years. She miraculously managed to retain her seat on the parish council by a margin of 1 vote despite 4 nerve-wracking recounts. However, for years later, her party dropped her from the party list, and she is unsure whether she can afford to stand in the upcoming parish council elections in May, especially as she is still estranged from her daughters and ex-husband. Cox's evidence led the Metropolitan Police to reopen an old murder case, but since there was no recorded evidence that Terry had ever been in London, Josie's DNA was a 0% match to the deceased pimp, and Hilda's ironclad alibi for the week's holiday she took 9 years ago was confirmed with a former Army colleague in the Outer Hebrides. The case was closed as quickly as it was opened. 5 years later, Terry leaned over Vernon, who was sitting at his usual desk in the planning department. Her hands squeezed his shoulders, and her proud breasts pressed against his back. "Oh, nice pink envelope, Vern," Terry said. "This has to be from Valentine. It's amazing that you resisted the temptation to open it for so long, dear. You know I always wait until you're here so we can open my card together." "Terry, my love, no matter how late you are," Vernon smiled, turning the unopened object in his hands. "I'm ready to open it now that you're here." He looked around. "Where's Jack? Did you leave him in your mom's office?" "Josie is looking after him in the waiting room. He was cranky because of teething. I left him surrounded by all the girls from the office who were looking after him. I was wondering where all the girls from our office went. A few minutes ago, I met them, and as usual, I clapped my hands on the way up the stairs." Vernon opened the card, colorful with roses on the front and a love message from his secret admirer inside, with the usual 3 crosses on the back. From the card, a coupon from a local men's hair salon fell out onto the table. "Thank you, Mrs. Terry Harrison. I love you so much," he said as he turned in his chair. Terry sat on his lap with grace and ease, wrapped her arms around his neck, and gave him a long, hot kiss. "Your hair is down to your collar, darling. It's time you got your hair cut properly. Thanks for my anonymous Valentine this morning, my sweet man. A coupon for a full spa treatment for 2. Josie was overjoyed and took the morning off from school. She's a teenager now, so she's ready to appreciate all the benefits of being a beautiful daughter to a beautiful mother. Well, she bought you a card too. She rummaged through her bag and pulled out a pastel-colored envelope. He opened it to find a cute little card decorated with roses and a big heart. The card's printed text had been altered by hand to read, "Thank you for being my Valentine, Mommy," with too many crosses to count. He couldn't help but smile and kissed his wife again. "Come home quickly after work, my dear," she whispered in his ear. "Jack and Josie are spending the night at Grandma's because my Valentine will be very happy today." What do you think of our story today? In my opinion, the situation is quite interesting because the husband has an unclear situation in the wife, but the wife's situation is more acute because she does it purposefully, while the husband does not. What is your impression? Write in the comments. See you in the next video.